Hello and welcome everyone to our first, or not our first, but our RealFi AMA today. Bruno and myself will be co-hosting the space, and as the name suggests, this will be all about RealFi. We have World Mobile joining us today. We have Andrew, we have Mr. Telecom here, and I'm not sure if anyone else is here from the World Mobile crew, but we can bring them in as we go.
James is here.
James is here. Hey, James, nice to have you. We have John O'Connor joining us hopefully soon. And then obviously we have some members of the Empowa team here as well. So definitely a lot of RealFi related things to talk about. But before we get started, wanted to quickly go over today's agenda. So first, we'll start with some quick individual and project intros. We'll start with World Mobile first, and maybe Andrew, if you want to kind of do that introduction, and then we'll move on to Glen from Empowa. And then after that, I'll get the ball rolling with a couple of questions. And then from there, we'll open up the floor to the community. When we get to that point in time, you can raise your hand and Bruno will let you in to ask the questions. So that gives you an idea of the agenda. So yeah, thanks everyone for listening so far. And with all that said, we can probably get started. So with the introductions, Andrew, if you don't mind, maybe you can do a quick intro on who you are, what you do, and also maybe just a quick rundown on World Mobile for those who aren't too familiar, which I'm sure isn't too many people here, but I'll pass the mic on to you.
Sure, thanks, mate. Appreciate that. And thanks for everybody for coming. Really appreciate you spending your time here with us and learning about the projects. So World Mobile, we are a mobile network operator, and we're using the blockchain to leverage a sharing economy and digital ID to make meaningful internet more available, starting in Africa, but we're also starting in the US. And we've got people like James Tagg, who's on the call, and I'm sure we'll speak later, to make sure that we have the technology and the absolute best that's available in the world. We'll be deploying that throughout the network. So my background is I'm originally from Kenya. My dad's Kenyan. I spent a lot of time growing up in Africa. From 2009, I was running a renewable energy company in Tanzania, and I saw a heck of a lot of challenges that the local farmers that we were supplying solar home systems to faced, just like in simple things like getting fertilizer on time or being able to sell their crop at the value that it was worth. And we were trying to solve these issues using getting them on the energy ladder. But what I realized was that if they had internet and if they had like an application where they could, pre-buy their fertilizer and get deliveries, which we've been working on subsequently, or if they could get a loan to bridge them between harvest and when they needed the money for school fees or school uniforms, for example, this is transformative in a way that we can't even comprehend. We're talking about doubling somebody's yearly income and saving them a 3-day hitchhike to go and buy farming inputs, for example. So when Mickey called me up, we're talking 5 years ago now, I just had a brain explosion about how amazing bringing internet to rural disconnected areas would be, but not just bringing internet, bringing meaningful value-added services as well as the internet. And that's what we're doing.
Love it. Glen, could you maybe do a quick intro to Empowa?
Sure, thanks. Thanks, and thanks to the the World Mobile team. It's great to have you aboard. My name is Glen Jordan. I'm also an African by birth and upbringing. I'm a Zimbabwean, and if anybody knows and understands the non-functionings of economies, I think it's it's us Zimbabweans. What Zimbos have had to live through from a destruction of value, from a destruction of systems and a complete non-working of systems, particularly financial systems, I think we're the sort of poster boy of non-functional economic systems, tragically. But the thing for me also got introduced to it, and the whole understanding and really around housing was the understanding for us, for me particularly, was that we use housing as so much more than just a place of refuge and a roof over our heads. I think that's obviously become, hugely apparent during COVID, but it's more what an important thing it is particularly for the developed world and the middle class, is about wealth creation. And it's a fundamental thing to be able to build an asset and be able to pass it on and to be able to build generational wealth, which is completely not available to the vast majority of the world's population. And it's one of the reasons why the poverty continues. And so I'm just so excited about the new technology and the capability it has to transform the way we do things, to start looking at things differently, to start looking at forward-looking instead of backward-looking. So, the systems just don't work for people who have never had access to the system. It's just as simple as that. So thanks for coming aboard, and look forward to some of the RealFi discussions.
All right, thanks, Glenn. And Bruno, if you just can keep an eye out on John, and we can bring him in as he joins. I'm sure everyone listening probably has a bunch of questions, but I wanted just to quickly ask World Mobile and also Empowa just to kind of set the scene, and hopefully provide a bit more context around where we're at the moment. Just for World Mobile and Empowa to provide a quick update on where we're at the moment, maybe some of the things we're currently working on. Obviously, we shared our World Mobile Empowa partnership, but maybe we can speak to kind of what that means from the World Mobile perspective and also from the Empowa perspective. So, World Mobile, if you want to kind of speak to that, provide a bit of an update, maybe some of the things you're working on at the moment, touch on the Mozambique project.
Yeah, it's a shame Zach wasn't in, because we've been working on a bunch of cool things, including some NFTs. I'm not involved in that. I'm in charge of country operations, so we are busy in Mozambique setting up our company there, acquiring a bunch of licenses, which are always needed when we go into a new country. And we're working with the housing development, so we're starting the design on a Wi-Fi mesh that's going to connect all the houses up in Beira. And then we've just seen a massive opportunity there. So we're starting to look further afield as well, so that when we do start, we're not just starting in a small place. We're going to start scaling up as soon as we can. I don't know whether, Mickey, you want to add anything to that?
Maybe that's a good answer for the moment. We can expand on that. I'm sure there'll be some questions related to that as well.
Sure.
Glenn, did you want to talk about the housing project? So what that means from the Empowa side?
Oh, thanks, Blane. Yeah, sorry. So for us, obviously, the collaboration with World Mobile on this is incredibly exciting because, as the team has just outlined, internet access is also so much more than just internet access. It's the key to the world. And for us to be able to provide housing together with internet access, I can't tell you how excited the team was on the ground when we announced that this was a possibility. They were just unbelievably excited. It really, I always keep saying, I wish we could bottle this kind of stuff for these conversations, because the response from them, was just so exciting in terms of how passionate they were, just what a difference it's making and what a difference, this kind of collaboration can make in people's lives. To have both access to an affordable home and affordable internet is just beyond some families' dreams.
Yeah, Marie, maybe you could speak to that a little bit. There's been some pretty exciting stories once there was word that potentially, World Mobile would be collaborating on this. It seemed like that sparked quite a few exciting conversations in Beira.
Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah, I wanted to widen also the perspective to the specific suffering that Beira as a city has. It's one of the, if not the most climate affected city in Africa due to climate change, and especially in recent years. Some may remember the big cyclone that hit there in 2019, Cyclone Idai. And you have to remember that Beira is not the capital of Mozambique, it's a secondary city, that the infrastructure is bad in these cities. And Beira has, since 2019, actually never, in terms of the infrastructure, also in terms of internet, not really recovered from the cyclone. I mean, it takes ages, even in rich countries, before you rebuild a city, let alone be it in a poor country like Mozambique. So that is the recovery, the rebuilding better we're actually now able to do in collaboration with World Mobile in terms of internet connectivity. So they're finally getting back to full connectivity. That's one. And two, well, you know, Blane, I can talk forever about the housing impact. I was one of the co-founders originally of the company there on the ground. I'm now full-time with Empowa, but I've worked for 20 years in affordable housing issues worldwide. It's so joyful to see what one can do now with these new Web3 based functionalities and finally start opening up these markets. I mean, people just can't imagine what new, what you know, if people live fully informally, that means you're actually not recognized. You're not having your asset legally recognized, and to now have that possibility through what we're offering as Empowa is just, well, it's beyond world changing. So we'll bring more and more stories we'll bring that out step by step during our journey. More, follow us, I would say more to come on specific stories where we let people actually speaking up themselves about it.
Alrighty. I think we can probably start opening up the floor now. So if you do have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, and Bruno will let you in, and we'll create some sort of a queuing system, and one by one we can go through the questions. So yeah, feel free to raise your hand and we can start asking him. Maybe while people raise their hand and ask some questions, Marie-Odile, you mentioned you could talk all day about the impact on the ground, but maybe we could talk at least for a little bit about the on the ground impact, because ultimately RealFi, at least in my perspective, there's a focus around, you know, tapping into this crypto technology, this crypto liquidity, and actually turning that into impact on the ground. So from the, at least from the Empowa perspective, with the leveraging DeFi, NFTs, what sort of on the ground impact can we expect to see from something like this?
Well, just imagine if you want to acquire a home and you'd have to build it yourself to get one. I mean, that's we have all these TV shows on channels, worldwide channels, about, you know, the DIY wanting to not only improve houses but building your houses. But just imagine that for 99% of low to middle income people, that's the only way for you almost to get your own home, because you just can't get it. The alternative is saving for 20 years to get a mortgage. And then to have this Casa Real, the delivery partner in Mozambique of Empowa, started offering only just a few weeks ago the lease to buy mechanism, whereby instead of in the usual traditional mechanism where for a mortgage you have to prove you have enough income to be able to repay this type of mortgage loan. And if 70% of the people in Africa work informal, so not have a contract, how can you ever prove you have enough income to get a loan? So with the offering that Empowa is making to these clients via the developer, a forward-looking lease-to-buy contract where you can pay as much as you can as you go. There's a minimum amount you have to pay, but you pay you build up your credit history forward-looking. And that's so revolutionary because for the first time, they can actually bring in everything they earn and really start investing in an asset. Our delivery partner there on the ground has done their research shows that the clients that were directly having to buy the home either via a very difficult to get mortgage. There's been only one so far client able to get a mortgage because he was saving 20 years for a deposit for that mortgage. So those outright buy clients that have to arrange their own financing, they were 40 plus years old. The lease to buy clients are families that are, or individuals that are 20 plus years. So you accelerate their journey by 20 years. So that's just one example of the life-changing offering that we can make now on the ground. And the effect is actually, since Casa Real has opened their offices with this lease to buy offering, is that, you know, people have started coming in. Obviously, it hasn't been marketed broadly because the offices would be flooded. But now already, you know, their friends, the friends of the friends, the friends of the friends of the friends are coming, and all their family members. I mean, it's... I often say to my colleagues at Empowa, you know, if we get this right, and we can see that we're getting it right. So it's not even a question of if we get this right, but when we get this to scale, it's a limitless market, really, in Africa, this kind of offering.
Yeah, very well said. I'd like to add, when we saw a great deal of advantages when we were working with farmers in Tanzania, if they had the ability to top up their loan or lease when they had the money after harvest, that was very popular, and there was a lot of success when we were doing that. So yeah, very well done.
That's an excellent point, Andrew, and that is again something you can't do with a mortgage. You can't often, you can't commit to a certain seasonal income because you don't know exactly when that income will come, how much it will be, and commit to that, and then receive penalties if you can't achieve that. The beauty of the flexibility that we have in the way we've structured it, and also the functionality there of the Cardano blockchain, is that indeed people can, with their chaotic ways of mobilizing incomes, can top up as they go, and without any penalties in a contract, which are traditionally there if you want to pay early in a mortgage. So under our lease to buy scheme, it allows the flexibility that those people with informal incomes so desperately need.
Pay-as-you-go home loans.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I see John has joined us. Hey, John.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm late. I was actually on a call about RealFi that dragged on doing a presentation. But anyway, it's living and breathing it. So living and breathing, everyone. And sorry I'm a little late.
No worries at all. Maybe we can just do a quick intro for those that don't know you. Just maybe a quick who you are, what you do, your role at Input Output.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, I'm John O'Connor. I think I was employee number sort of 13 or 14 for the Cardano family. I was back, my first role was head of strategy at the Cardano Foundation when there was 2 people in the Cardano Foundation. So really by default, I had to have a role. And then afterwards, I shifted towards Input Output, set up the Africa division. Been living in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia for the last 4 years, now living in Kenya, in Nairobi. And yeah, I think I've been working closely with a lot of folks on this call, the World Mobile Gang, and now Empowa, on both identity solutions and now increasingly onto finance solutions on this RealFi thesis of connecting up crypto liquidity to real world asset classes. So yeah, delighted to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Right in time for the questions. Greg, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, I do. Welcome everyone, also part of the Empowa team. But it was great to hear Marie talk a bit about the impact of housing. I'm really interested to also hear from the World Mobile team, from Andrew, Mickey, James, a little bit around some of the research and kind of insights that you have around connectivity and how that enables, income generation. So I think for us, that's quite exciting, is that not only are we able to give people the ability to own their home, but we also, hopefully through the internet connectivity, increasing their income, making them more able to kind of service that lease. So I'm just interested to know some of the research you guys may have around that.
See a few people have their hand up. Are you talking about just people saving money from cheaper mobile data service?
Well, I'm just interested to know if there's been any research done by the World Mobile team around the effects of better internet connectivity around job creation or improving people's roles. Yeah.
Sure, I can jump in here, Andy. So we're conducting research all of the time. I think if you look at some of the mainstream press, we're quite often quoted with the research that we are conducting. But if you take cases like India, as an example, Manoj Kohli from Airtel Bharti, he managed to deliver very, very fast internet, extremely cheap, and actually consumption and ARPUs went up, not down. So this was because the economic situation of the people that had internet became so much better that they were able to pay for more, to stay online for longer, to do the things that they wanted to do. So with the best assumptions and our best research, we also believe this will be the case throughout Africa too, throughout the entire of the continent. Provide good internet, and everybody has the chance to be able to take opportunity into their own hands. So yeah.
Well, I'll just add to that. We're working with the Zanzibari government today, connecting up fishermen, and we're working through a process to get them certified sustainable fishing. So this layer of connectivity is going to increase the value of their catch by at least 5 times. So this is real money for these guys. So there's a lot of ways you can use connectivity to increase people's income, not just by, giving them access to have an internet-based job, but also increasing the value of whatever commodity they're working in.
Yeah, I might just add something on there. So, there's been tons and tons of sort of academic work done on this, actually, often by the UN. But the example I like to give actually is often in Kenya. So not just in terms of providing internet, but internet plus M-Pesa for mobile money basically puts the Kenyan economy on a different track. And there are figures over sort of the GDP growth, the shifting of that curve. From the work done by having both internet and mobile money. So one thing which a lot of people don't know is that, M-Pesa, mobile money globally was started in Kenya, which is the program that you call M-Pesa. It was actually created, a joint program set up by DFID, which is the UK's aid arm. And they had no idea what they created. So it basically started as this very clunky little pilot, and they just couldn't stop the pilot. It just grew and grew and grew and grew. And I think one of the really cool things which you see in Kenya is the amount of small SMEs which get to operate because they have fluidity of being able to take payments. So absolutely, you create generations of micro entrepreneurs, all based on the ability to transact and having access to internet. So it is a game changer. I wish I had good figures for you off the top of my head. I used to know them, but they were definitely positive.
Thanks, John. We've got Carl. I think you had your hand up first. Would you like to ask your question?
Yes, thank you very much. Hope you guys can hear me. I really love Empowa. This is the mission that one of the reasons why I actually joined Cardano in the first place. My question is about sustainability. Recently, we've gone through a rough time in the crypto world where we've had several organizations, Celsius, Voyager, Solana, a project owner, Solana, fall into trouble by being a little bit too risky in their endeavors. And I'm wondering what systems does Empowa have in place to ensure that no 1 or even 10 individual loans have a chance of destabilizing the whole program if they were to default? What actual measures do we have in place for that? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Carl, for the question. Is that something you want to speak to, Glen?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. Great question. I think, with risk in RealFi, there's no silver bullet. And the whole thing around it is that we have to address risk at every step in the chain. And that's exactly what we're seeking to achieve in terms of the processes and the systems that we're trying to get into the system and test. So there's been a lot of chat in our community over the last couple of days around systems and how much you can get out there and how much you have to practically test stuff. And with risk, the key thing around it is around, as I say, bedding it down at each level. The biggest risk mitigator is the forward-looking aspect of it. So the ownership of the property doesn't transfer. So in a lot of societies, in the developed world, the rental system is actually perceived as quite dysfunctional, ironically, because it's so challenging to get people out of a rental if they don't pay their rent, etc. Whereas often, ironically, in the informal systems, it's far more efficient because people know that if they don't pay their rent, they're out on the street. So if they're not, and that will completely ruin both relationships and the stuff that they have. So the forward-looking aspect of it, the fact that the ownership is not transferred until the asset is paid for, so it rests effectively, the risk rests with the developer or the provider or the manager effectively of the loan. So that's the one way we deal with it. The other aspect in terms of where we're dealing it, and Marie-Odile will talk to this, is the opportunity to own a home. The reverse is true. They are so excited about this opportunity. They're so desperate for this opportunity. They're so desperate not to mess up this opportunity that it becomes actually far less risky, ironically, than traditional. And a lot of the research demonstrates that in practice around this kind of opportunity. It doesn't make it risk-free. Lending, as we know, when it started off with the micro-lending, it started off with this boom, and then obviously it got less and less returns as people started to get the system. But it really is around managing the payment aspect, which is a key part of it, which we're looking at how we do that, obviously recording that on the blockchain, getting visibility, having warning signs of when things are going wrong, plus transfer of ownership only happening, and being able to measure and track all of that kind of process. So, as I say, there are lots of answers to that question, but I hope that sort of gives you a sense of how we're approaching it.
If I can just add one point also to it. We as Empowa work with local community partners, delivery partners who are really embedded in the local communities in which they operate. They know the politics, they know the financial conditions of these communities, they know the cultural traditions. And we also strongly are of it's even beyond belief, because it's so much proven that only when you are really into understanding the local issues can you capture that market and can you make it a sustainable proposition. Also keep in mind, and maybe many in this call are already aware of it, but I'm just repeating it because it's such an important factor, that now a lot of these communities are really being extorted with outrageously expensive loans, short-term loans. I'm not even talking about the mortgage rates here, which are in many countries in Africa 20 to 30%. So what we can offer now is really a game changer. And as Glen is saying, people from these communities, low to middle income communities who are our target groups, they know there is, for the coming time, no alternative to them. So they will really make an effort to be a good client. That has been our experience here. And that is also the experience, what you see with these low income communities in other parts of the world. And yeah, as a woman, I also have to stress that it's mainly also the women in these communities that will really make an effort that the housing gets paid for first. So yeah, let me leave it at that.
Thanks, Marie. Yeah, thanks again for the question, Carl. Hopefully that answered a bit of it. If it doesn't, feel free to follow it up. Clover Earth Nodes, I think you had your hand up next if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, yep.
Cool. I have two questions. One of them is, can you walk us through the process of token distribution, how we can claim the Empowa rewards from the impact cards? Like, would they be airdropped, or are we going to use like a token distribution platform for them? And then my second question is, I saw that the rewards would be around 3.5 Empowa tokens per month. Is that an estimation amount, or is that an exact amount we can expect for impact card?
Thanks for the question. Who wants to take that one, Glen?
Yeah, I can take that one again. So the initial distribution mechanism will be as per the tokens, as per our token sale. So it'll be on a claim basis until such time as we get the smart contracts up and running. And in the terms of the second part of your question, the 3.5, that's should we say it's a projected. It's not. It's not promised. What's the word I'm looking for? Committed, but it's certainly we have to attempt it to be on the conservative side, and not the other way. So we'd rather under promise and over deliver than the other way around.
And just wanted to speak a little bit to the. Sorry, was your first question around the Earth Node? NFT, buying an Earth Node buying an NFT as an Earth Node operator. Did I get that right, Clover?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Sorry, no, I messed up my words. I was asking if your original question, the first one, was around being an Earth Node operator and buying one of these seed NFTs, or maybe I misheard.
No, I was just wondering like how the distribution of the tokens will happen.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, I think that was me, because the Twitter handle is Clover Earth Nodes, so maybe that's where you heard the.
I got it in my head. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but that's all my questions. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we have Tommy or Gravendier.
Howdy, can y'all hear me? Hello?
Faintly, I think.
Oh yeah, sorry. Can y'all hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, yeah.
There's a bit of an echo.
Oh. Sorry about that. I'm trying here. I don't know what's going on. I guess my first question is with the impact rewards. Is that going to be a fixed supply? Is it going to be a centralized entity, or is the market going to determine the value of these rewards, like on a decentralized exchange? And my second question is, how do you guys propose to implement DID systems into WMT and the Empowa? Thank you.
Okay, so addressing the first part of the question, so the impact rewards, I'm not sure if that's a Glen or a Greg.
So I can take that. So the impact rewards, that we obviously, we're working with a number of projects to add value for the impact rewards. As we've stated, they will be exchangeable for Empowa, and I think we've shared the rate of that. I think it was 1,000 impact rewards for one EMP. Having said that, other projects who enjoy the impact rewards program may be able to offer other items, be those physical items, be those virtual items, and of course, impact rewards will likely find their way onto DEXs as well, where they'll also be exchanged, and therefore it will happen at a market rate. So we understand, as kind of the first movers in impact rewards, we need to give some kind of surety for what they could be used for. So we're going with that first use case of 1,000 impact rewards per one EMP. But as we said, if you follow the Impact Rewards website and the news coming from the team there, hopefully soon there'll be many other use cases, other projects, other partners who want to either potentially exchange their own token for Impact Rewards or exchange other things within their project. Does that tackle that first question? Because then I'd love to hand over to the World Mobile team to talk a bit about identity.
Yeah, that helped. Thank you.
What was the question regarding identity, please?
I just wanted to know how WMT, Empowa, and whatever else is going to be included in the future, if you guys have talks, how is DID, like Atala Prism, for example, going to be included within the system? Because I would assume it's very important and integral to have reliable construction people with, certificates on a DID or educational stuff within the system.
Yeah, I cannot speak for Empowa there, but I can speak for World Mobile. With every customer that is a World Mobile customer, or every node owner and operator is granted a DID using Atala Prism upon every instance. So we believe that is the missing part, one of the missing parts of economic growth. If you just have internet, it's one thing, but if you can't prove who you are, you're very restricted. So when you can prove who you are, you're then able to apply for courses, for education. You're able to apply for loans. You're able to apply for many things, really enter into the world of RealFi. So for us, it's actually a crucial part to have DIDs. And yeah, you put a very good point across. I would imagine for Empowa, it's also important.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry,
John, go for it.
Thanks. Well, just to sort of hold our hand up here. So Prism's obviously been in development for a while. Sort of pace of development getting really, really fast. So yeah, we're just getting to sort of release candidates for Prism, where it's sort of easy to integrate and easy to use. So, sort of first of all say, thank you, World Mobile, thank you, Empowa. We are almost there. When it comes towards the subject of utility for DIDs, we're working on this sort of RealFi protocol, right? And the initial focus of this is going to be on enabling SMEs to borrow from their identities to be able to receive working capital. But you can easily extrapolate this towards small loans for airtime or really whatever within, let's say, World Mobile. So the whole RealFi protocol is going to be able to ingest information from DIDs to be able to price and then allocate capital, either from investors who are holding crypto in their Lace wallet or their Cardano wallets, or eventually also institutional capital. So whilst we're not quite there yet, the goal in the future, if you can sort of look forward in your crystal ball, is to be able to ingest various forms of credit signals from DIDs to be able to then get capital from various RealFi protocols, and then to be able to have that deployed into the wallets of the various partners that are building on us, like World Mobile or like Empowa. So this will be the identity container which enables that capital to flow in this sort of Web3 RealFi world.
Yeah, I mean, maybe to just talk a bit about Empowa. Digital identities kind of covered in our white paper and is also critical to our project. I mean, there's a lot of migration that happens across the continent, and not being able to carry a track record of being somebody who successfully was able to service your rental really makes it difficult as a migrant moving to a new country, where often you're then forced to take very poor quality accommodation because there's no trust in your ability to make payment, or alternatively you pay a massive premium over locals, again because of that concern. I think it speaks a little bit, to a point where a question asked maybe earlier about Carl around what are some of the issues around mitigating risk. I think here digital identity really does add to that risk mitigation. If we say to people, your successful payment also builds a track record that then will potentially unlock other opportunities. Whether you were to move, say, to another country where an Empowa partner was operating, you may be able to get preferential rates or a preferential treatment in one of our partner developments. It might be the case that with other partners that we choose to work with, having a track record of being a successful payer and having that kind of proven on a blockchain may be useful for unlocking some of their services. So I think it is a critical element to what we need to do. It's critical to RealFi, and it adds even more value to, again, going for an Empowa funded home over potentially another house that doesn't give you that track record.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your questions. Feel free, anyone else listening, to request to be a speaker, and we can let you in as well. Also, the people that are kind of in the speaker role, if there's anything you want to add based on what has been spoken about so far, feel free to just talk or add or clarify anything that's been said.
That cross-border thing really resonates with me. When I moved back to the UK 3 years ago. I had to live in substandard rental houses because I had to pay 6 months up front, and I couldn't get a mortgage because I hadn't had the income, the proof of income back in the UK for so many years. So that's, even in the Western world, that's a very powerful thing to have.
John, I'd love to hear from you. We chatted on our Empowa podcast a couple of months ago. And one thing that really resonated with me was you're talking about the change in sentiment from the people that you speak to when you first arrived in Africa, doing the work that you're doing, and the change in sentiment now. Can you maybe speak about that change in sentiment? Because from my perspective, that seems like something that's quite important in terms of RealFi adoption at scale in Africa. Could you maybe speak about that kind of change in sentiment from when you first started?
Right. So there's two sort of sentiment changes which I think are worth pointing out. One is obviously on a regulatory and on a government level. When I started in Ethiopia, just trying to sort of talk about blockchain applications was challenging because the basic primitives of what this technology is, have very little public cognizance. And I think that you can see that's very much changed, for better or for worse in some countries. But you're starting from a standpoint that at least people are sort of aware of the technology and sometimes even aware of sort of the difference between blockchain and crypto. I think what's really excited me is seeing lots of engagement from central banks and starting to look at CBDCs, and an understanding from a lot of countries that actually, this new form of asset actually can create positive developments in the country. That actually, whereas every African country is typically really nervous about capital flight all of the time, this can be a way to finance projects and sort of build economic value within each of these countries, and without having necessarily to try to go to the usual partners of the IMF, the World Bank. This is a way to raise private capital to be able to finance things that have a positive return. So that's really been a change I've noticed a lot over the last 5 years. The second change I'd like to highlight, which I've also found really interesting, is that, in a frothy crypto asset market world, where DeFi is giving you sort of, 70, 80% yields, with no one really understanding the underlying value, I think it's quite difficult for people to try to propose that you've got these sort of real-world RealFi projects which are earning more modest yields, that this is really a place where investors should be putting capital. I think that in a post-Terra Luna world, where suddenly, confidence in crypto is much lower, I think actually it becomes a much more attractive space for RealFi projects. Yields more in the region of sort of 9% a year suddenly become very, very attractive to investors. Of course, the nice thing about a lot of sort of RealFi stuff is that because you've got the inputs being, fiat on one side, and real earning power, you're more insulated from these crypto movements. Ultimately, what you've got is an uncorrelated asset towards other crypto prices. And of course, whilst crypto tokens may trade similarly, the fact that the input is someone working and paying, be it for a mortgage or being it for their telco data. This, I think, actually positions RealFi projects really strongly as a sustainable project and a sustainable use case for crypto. And I've noticed a lot more interest on sort of RealFi, since post-Terra Luna. So I think actually it's a really strong space for projects like what we have on the call. And I think that's only going to grow as time goes on.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point with RealFi and it being uncorrelated in a way to some other crypto projects because, in this time that we're in at the moment, the bear market, if you will, in the bear market, the demand for housing or the demand for internet connectivity doesn't decrease. The interest in crypto projects may decrease during these times, but the demand for these real world assets doesn't decrease during these times. And what that then means is something that I'm quite interested in. Like it's quite a interesting thing to think about within this crypto space. This, thinking about crypto projects that aren't just crypto, but are crypto plus real world.
And just finally on that, we're going to see a massive increase in the sort of analytics tools for people to be able to look at their crypto portfolios and analyze it for like various different risks. So you could see a world in the future where, essentially projects like this could act as a hedge against other exposure. And we're also going to see automated rebalancing tools that sort of get us there. So I really do think that, realizing that RealFi obviously gives protection against that and makes it more attractive as a portfolio allocation, could see more interest and more investment in these projects from people who aren't here for the mission, but actually here to be able to balance portfolio risk. And that's no bad thing. We all start with the missionaries like myself and a lot of the people on this call. But as things get more sophisticated, it's no bad thing to have other people coming into these communities.
Yeah, definitely. Carl, would you like to? Oh, Greg, did you want to quickly add to that?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to ask, I think Richard from Cardano, our on-the-ground building partner, is on the call, and I'd love to have him added as a speaker and hear a little bit about his experience in getting capital into Mozambique using DeFi and Web3. So maybe we can tackle Carl's question while maybe, hopefully, Bruno, you can locate Richard and add him as a speaker. And Richard, if you don't mind sharing your experience, I think it was really valuable as a real use case for RealFi, the Cardano blockchain, etc.
Yeah, great idea. Bruno, if you could find Richard, and Carl, if you want to ask your question.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Not to detract from our main mission, which is developing RealFi in Africa. By the way, John O'Connor, I love it when you speak. You're actually one of my favorite Cardano enthusiasts or supporters, I guess is the word to use. So thank you for being here. My question is, what are the differences in implementation between a Western market like the US and African nations like Mozambique, Kenya, Zimbabwe, etc. in terms of, especially in the inner cities in the US, there are whole neighborhoods that have been gutted due to creative destruction, which would be fantastic places to raise capital to build affordable housing. And, what are your barriers to implementation or entry in both those markets? Once Empowa has proven itself in Africa, does it intend to roll out into world conquest?
Maybe I can speak to that. The reality, as you say, absolutely, the reality on the ground, the challenges that we have are vast, and we could sit and give you that could be another whole AMA and discussion. But I think the key part around Africa is that, and Charles speaks to this, Charles Hoskinson speaks to this as well. It's around where there's so little infrastructure, where the systems are such huge failures. And I mean, people who listen to our material and all of that know the stat, but there's 600 mortgages in Mozambique. I mean, 600 in a country of 30 million people. That shows you the dysfunction. So the ability to come in at that level and start to make a difference is just immense. So, Marie-Odile spoke briefly around the market and the response to the market. So for us, it's almost easier to go into where there's such pent-up demand and where there's little infrastructure, because it gives us the opportunity to explore. And one of the reasons we chose Mozambique was literally there's no infrastructure. The first time we said, how are we going to get this into Mozambique? We went, this is brilliant. I have no idea. So we had to really start from scratch. But the answer to your question around the inner cities of US and beyond, absolutely. I think World Mobile's got it right by naming themselves World Mobile, because the issues are the same. I don't see any difference. Obviously, from a marketing and a focus perspective, we decided to launch in Africa, but it's certainly not limited. We never saw it as limited to Africa, and we certainly see it as extending wherever there's a need and wherever the financial systems are not working, because I think that's the opportunity.
Wow, couldn't say it better myself.
Hit the nail on the head, Glen.
Sorry, just chime in very quickly with some administrative stuff. Clover, Carl, and Gravendir, if you guys have already asked your questions, but if you have another question, feel free to stay up. But if you haven't, if you could remove yourself from speaker, that would be awesome. Then we can just let other people up. Thank you so much. And Richard, I've just invited you as well to come up to speaker. So please accept if you're able to speak. And I think we have some questions for you. But we also got Pete coming up.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Richard's managing to become a speaker, so let me pick that issue up while he's trying, because I know the Mozambique situation quite well. Just to respond to the issue that Greg raised just now of the challenges, and Glen also, the financial dysfunctionalities of the current systems in Africa. I mean, the challenges that, for instance, a lot of businesses have, but specifically which is damaging affordable housing developers, is just the challenge of not only raising capital but moving it, because the pricing for loans, if you want to start a housing project, and your local market gives you only short-term loans, 6 months loans at 30%, no one can develop an affordable housing business case with that kind of terms for financing. So you have to bring in your money from overseas. Casa Real did that, and we use this example quite often as Empowa because it so shows the dysfunctionality. But this is the real case, guys. Casa Real mobilized financing from a UK investor. It was Casa Real's money. Casa Real had to work, and as it happens with a starting business, you prepare, you go through the whole due diligence. It takes 1 year, 1.5 years. The money, the whole Casa Real team was celebrating that the loan was signed, the money was transferred, and then it got stuck for 5 months at the Mozambican Central Bank. Why? Because they could. It was Casa Real's money, but and every week they will say, oh, it comes next week, it comes next week. What is the impact of that? It impacts obviously your speed of delivery as a developer. Casa Real had to fire half its construction staff. So if that's not a business impediment, I don't know what is. So with the functionality that is now there, with decentralized financing. And Richard, I really beg you to come up as speaker, because you say it much better yourself. But Richard has been saying, even if Empowa does only that, move money much quicker in country and do it in a predictable way, then that's mission achieved already. Well, our ambitions are higher than that, but that is such a game changer. I cannot stress that enough.
Richard, if you can hear us, they might have requested you to be speaker. There should be maybe a pop-up that you need to click. I'm not sure if there's an internet connectivity thing. So World Mobile Internet's not in Mozambique at the moment, so that could be
Not yet.
internet. Yeah, not yet. So that's might be the reasoning there.
Mozambique's very interesting for us, of course, for Empowa, but also it's there on the coast, so it has a blue economy that can be applied to it, and our network is built for that too, as well as 30 million people, and mobile money is not is up for disruption there as well, so it's an exciting place. I must jump off, and I think a couple of our team have a meeting as well now. John, nice to see you here. Everybody from the Empowa team, thank you for inviting us. Andy, great to see you, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Mickey.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mickey.
Bye.
Thanks, Mickey. Cheers.
Okay, so we're now in. Go for a little bit longer. If anyone has any questions, obviously feel free, and we'll keep trying to get.
Just came up recently.
Pete, if you have a question, feel free to ask away. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm reading all about how the bear market's panning out, and it's inevitable with the crash in the financial markets and everything else like that. But there's a possibility when Scotland gets its referendum that it's going to need new finance and pull away from the Bank of England. I know they're working heavily in Edinburgh University at present with was it Voltaire is how you can lobby government and all the rest of this, and things that are coming out in the network and the ecosystem is immense. So it's how far does this go? You know, there's a massive rabbit hole there, and it does give Scotland a lot of potential, because people will only vote for independence and pull away from Crown and become a republic when it's a boom, you know what I mean, on a bull. And Cardano is setting itself up nicely to start on a bull again, probably within the next 2 to 3 months. And for October next year, that would be part of the bull. So you get that hype and that feeling of intensity within society. So I think we're on a good course for independence, but then pulling away from the Bank of England and it'd be collapsing lots of parts of the City of London. Well, you know, I mean, you've got to get the players on side. And how Scotland comes about, and I mean the decentralisation of England that needs to be discussed as well, and how maybe you can make, I don't know, maybe Hull or wherever after Prescott want to decentralise England and break that in half. I've been talking to people in Australia about decentralising Victoria because of the history of Melbourne and Victoria, and how Australia was started off with the Dutch, obviously, then became British. So yeah, decentralising Australia, and obviously that breaks up breaks up America's military machine, which could stop a war with Russia and what's going on in Iran at present with Biden. So there's so much potential for this ecosystem to really grow and be able to create a new world regime, as you're aware. So my question is, I suppose, how much thought is going into the ecosystem with World Mobile and actually bring it into countries like Scotland and decentralising England?
Right.
We're already rolling out in the UK right now, by the way.
Sorry.
I don't call it the
on,
UK
guys.
anymore. I call it the kingdom that's not united.
Yeah, all for one for all. So yeah, we're rolling out in the UK now. So we've done a bunch of Welsh villages, and we're still working on getting our sharing economy right. But 100%, yeah, you know, decentralizing everything and bringing the shared economy to anywhere in the world where telecoms is lacking or connectivity or whatever is lacking is our goal.
Well, it's a new financial industry, so yeah, the potential is great. So that's good to hear. It's open minds and looking to resolve legacy systems. I've read a lot of books by Robert Precher, who does socionomics at Oxford University. Has there been much? Have you guys looked into that much with their take on how the new, because they've covered Cardano in their news flashes, but obviously that's just more from a Elliott wave perspective and financial trading. But it's interesting that they believe it to be a massive game changer in socioeconomics.
That's not on my radar. I reckon John might have come across that. You're an Oxford boy, aren't you?
I'm an Oxford man. It was so long ago, I'm not even sure I can recall, and I was probably having too much fun. But so look, a couple of things that you said. Actually, I've been down to our research labs at Edinburgh University a few times, and the work there is really fantastic. In terms of sort of, the new wave of economics, socioeconomics, community currencies, I think all of this stuff is really interesting, and I agree with you that there's like a lot of like by default implications of this kind of thought, and it aligns pretty strongly with the sort of mission and ethos of what cryptocurrencies do. Maybe I'll just talk a little bit about the community currency stuff, because it often goes on a lot about, it's in the same ilk of moving towards more localized economies. So there's a really cool company or group called Grassroots Economics. They're actually based here in Kenya, where they've been setting up community currencies for villages. And they've done a fantastic job, actually. They're incredibly popular in these villages, so much so that when the central bank here banned them, all of these villagers marched on Nairobi to the central bank to demand that they were allowed to carry on running their own money. So I think that you get some really interesting grassroots work being done by people all across the world. And, the systems we're building and the technology we're building, it's open for everyone. So I don't think it's necessarily, for IO to go and try to do this in every country. I know that I've been doing a lot of work in Africa. But yeah, I think it really is an ecosystem thing. So, I'd sort of pass the question back to you. All of this tech is open source. Go and start talking to the Scottish Parliament and figuring out how you can get it adopted.
Yeah, I certainly, I think Joanna Cherry's doing a great job, and I think the divorce with England will be done on moral grounds through the Church Assembly, and there's been lots of talk about that at this the gathering of the Free Church and obviously Church of Scotland and all the rest of it, and it was all looking at how legislation can be pushed through to say that as on moral grounds that there will be a vote in October next year, so there won't be any stopping it. And now it's just a case of making sure that it's not going to be another Cambridge Analytica, and that actually there's going to be proper, decent education of people within Scotland, because it goes back to Haughty Gaul. You will not get the people if you've got a king, Ravi Barons, as he said. So yeah, there's just so much going on, but unless you get people educated and bring up the levels of it, we're not going to have a really good time of it with the independence referendum. And you've only got on at the moment on a Sunday, there's the Herald broadsheet that actually supports it. So it's difficult. Obviously now with all the Web 3.0 and people using different media sources, I think it's in the balance. But yeah, obviously you want to try and keep billionaires from manipulating, and it looks to me that Scotland's going to be overtaken by America if it doesn't go independent. You just needed to go to the Renaissance Golf Club and see all the build around there down in North Berwick, and you can see by the Scottish Open, it's America's basically taking over Scotland, and it's probably already taken over England if you look at the NHS. So yeah, there's a lot of things that is going to come up. And it's just how it gets addressed, and it's getting the right people in the right places. And it will be decentralized. It's just how, I believe. So it's really encouraging your work, John. And I need to take down that note of that. You said it was a Kenya Communities Project.
It's called Grassroots Economics.
Grassroots Economics. Is that to do with Mess's economics at all?
I think it's sort of going. Anyway, look, it's not to get into it, but I think it's sort of based on sort of going back. It's basically a rejection of globalism, right? And the belief that actually all of the properties of money and the reasons why we have money actually can be addressed better for smaller economies than necessarily having a larger currency, which also leads to inflation in your local economy based on macroeconomic stuff going on outside of your economy. So essentially the same argument for why Greece, which doesn't have the same amount of homogeneity in terms of its economy as other countries in Europe, maybe shouldn't have taken the euro. So it's these sort of similar arguments anyway.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. All right, okay. Food for thought anyway. So thank you very much for letting me join the meeting and asking a question. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Pete. Appreciate the input.
Okay, cheers for now, eh? All the best.
All the best. Cheers, mate. Alrighty. Any more questions? RealFi fans out there? Otherwise, we'll give it a minute or two. Otherwise, I think we could probably wrap it up if there's nothing more to add. 73 guests at the moment. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Feel free.
You're going to have to rap for us to entertain us if no one asks a question.
Well, John, you might need to drop me a beat first, though.
Look, I'll do that if you're going to rap. Don't tempt me.
No, I can't do this. This is being recorded, I think, so. Okay, we've got a couple of people join the speaker queue. Tashoma, have you got a question for us? I definitely mispronounced that.
Yeah, sorry, I think there was an issue with my Bluetooth just there. Based in Senegal, I'd just like to know what regulatory hurdles you had to jump over to realize RealFi in Kenya and Mozambique.
John, from a more broad perspective, did you want to speak to some regulation challenges, or?
Sure. Well, I'll deal with Kenya. So first of all, obviously every country is different, and this goes without saying. You're from Senegal, so you understand this. But within Ethiopia, for instance, there's almost no way to get capital back out. Even big companies like Heineken, who built up a surplus of $500 million in Ethiopia and just couldn't get the money out. And that's because the country has such a deficit of dollars that it's almost impossible to move them out, and particularly when you've got a fixed exchange rate. So the supply doesn't match. Kenya's a lot easier. Typically Kenya has had mostly free capital movements. As we run up to the election now, there is once again a dearth of dollars, so it's harder for businesses to access dollars. That being said, in Kenya, the regulatory environment is pretty advanced. You do have clear regulatory guidelines for a lot of things. You have licenses which people can apply for. There's not secret license processes that no one understands. You have a new sandbox which is being created for fintech companies. So, we've already been lending off our own balance sheet into SMEs in Kenya as the first step of a broader lending protocol strategy to sort of connect up, value in ADA, in Lace wallets and ADA wallet holders towards these loan opportunities. The model which we're using is to essentially run off partners' licenses. So step one is essentially, you've got a partner like Possession in Kenya who's bringing the loan origination and capital which is transferred in. We have agreements with Possession in order to be able to do that. This is sort of a traditional approach. The next phase, which is where it gets really exciting, is when each individual Lace wallet holder does KYC and compliance through a short form, much like when you set up your Monzo, your Revolut bank account for a neobank, and then a credential is issued, which shows that you've passed this. When you're then performing a loan towards, let's say, a Kenyan SME, and that money is being transferred to the SME, what you do is you build a workflow for the regulator so that KYC and compliance information can be directly posted with the regulator. So obviously this is a new workflow for them, but it's also something which they're willing to talk about and engage with. So, in Kenya, these kind of conversations are exciting for the government because they represent more capital movements into the country. In other countries, this is going to be a much harder sell. So I think it's a case-by-case basis. Regulation is very, very different across the continent, but there are a good suite of countries which are amenable to this sort of movement forward. So yeah, I think a lot of reason to be quite excited. And I think the only thing you need to do to a hard country to get them to start moving is to sort of show the work you've done in another country in the region and show what benefits it's brought. So you don't need everyone all at once. It's a big old continent. I think you just need real value to be deployed in a number of countries, and it will sort of spread from there.
What would you say are the first steps for regions such as Senegal that really don't have any clear regulation on crypto? And when you speak to established people in the government, etc., they're very suspicious of crypto, let alone DeFi. Like, what would you say are the first steps to helping them move in that direction?
So I've done a lot of these conversations, and if you're starting from cold, the way you've got to do it is just with a lot of time. There's a reason why we managed to get our identity project done in Ethiopia, and that's because I was living in Ethiopia. I was doing meetings all day, every day for years to try to get this across the line. Obviously, that's not a super scalable model. You can't be everywhere all at once. So now what we try to do more is to work with great local partner institutions who already have licenses and understandings and networks and relationships. So for instance, in Kenya, it's been much easier to start having these conversations by working closely with Equity Bank, which is one of the larger banks in the region, who do a lot of lending. So starting to try to look with them and saying, hey, maybe we could work on a DID identity use case in DRC, which is very interesting for them. Pardon me. And then start to say, okay, well, look, maybe we can approach the Kenyan regulator together over some things which might be of interest. So that would be my first port of call in Senegal, would be identifying great partner institutions who can help guide, navigate, and lead these conversations. Because, who am I? If I rock up to Senegal cold, there's going to have to be a lot of bridge building before anyone will sort of trust us. So yeah, that's it. Working with partners who've been there a lot longer than you have and understand the environment more than you ever will.
Just a point to add to that, John, I think for us, one of the joys of housing is that it tends to be a real political drive. So I know it's one of the key things, for example, in Kenya, but just generally, so affordable housing generally is sort of higher priority for most politicians. So anything that can address that gets positively received.
I actually think that's a really good point, and I probably should have said that in Ethiopia, we led with this Ministry of Education Identity project, but that was probably like the seventh idea I tried to gain traction on. The reason why education worked is exactly for this reason. Education is a social good, and enabling students to prove the value of the education that they've done to be able to better gain employment and deal with fake degrees is a really hard thing to not like. So you've got a cascade of projects which go from really easy to really difficult. And I think, as you said, housing is crucial. It's a fundamental thing that we take for granted in a lot of countries. So yeah, from a political standpoint, that's quite attractive if you're trying to help with that problem.
Carl, I see you're back again. Would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, one last, I know this is probably a ridiculous question for you guys, but how are we going to deal with the tax situation in all these countries? When they repay the loans for their homes versus Empowa, is it automatically calculated where the system itself would automatically deduct the money for taxes and send it to government agencies so we stay in compliance? Tell me how that works. Thank you.
We haven't started to address that yet, to be honest. It's still early days from the point of view of the taxation payments. Effectively, it's still the responsibility of our partner. So we haven't started looking at that as part of our solution as yet. So we haven't got there. So it's still on our journey. Still one of the things that will come up, but to be honest, we haven't got there yet.
And just to answer that, fine within the Kenyan example, withholding tax is automatically deducted. So you just got to model it in, right? And if the economics work, the economic works. There's various ways people can be less than honest about the tax payments, but that doesn't enable you to scale, and it definitely doesn't enable you to start making meaningful impacts. So one way or another, you do have to engage with the law of the land.
Just to add one point to that is that governments are usually also very happy, as Glen said already, because they like, institutions coming in and delivering something that they should actually help in delivering in, but delivering societal problems or helping to solve societal problems. But also keep in mind what I said earlier, that now the majority of Africans earn informally. Very few people pay taxes. So actually you're creating by in the case of the Empowa proposition, which offers formally registered housing in most cases. It depends on the specific model. Sometimes there's also hybrid, informal, formal registration is possible. But in this specific case in Mozambique, these are formally registered housing. So the local government is very excited because the Empowa's delivery partner is creating extra tax revenue from those registered houses.
Hope that answered your question. Otherwise, we might...
Just one question I have over here in Telegram. Someone asked me to ask a question to John. And the question is around, will there be a Cardano Africa Special Part 2? And asking a bit about if there's going to be other projects mentioned, such as Empowa. And I guess we're curious to know about that as well, yeah. Is there going to be a Part 2 to the Africa Special? I think that was a really powerful one last year. So, John, I don't know if you can speak to that.
If we were to do one, we'd probably try to leave more time to actually film it. So, I'm keen to do one. I'm also keen to sort of get work done. And sometimes these things, actually, they're a bit zero-sum. I would like to. I think that there's been a lot of stuff that I've been working on for a long time now, which I'm really hoping I can get done this quarter and next quarter. But as you say, it's less and less actually about me, or less and less about us at IO and Cardano. I think if we were to do one, we'd very much want to be doing one which sort of showcases some of the amazing work that people are doing in our ecosystem. Empowa working very hard now. Mobile should have Zanzibar all networked up towards the end of the year. So I think if we were to do one, it would probably be early next year. It would probably be shorter, better cut, and better filmed, and it would very much include the work in our partner ecosystem. So I'm glad someone enjoyed it. I certainly didn't enjoy making it, so it's good. It's good that there was some utility there.
Oh. I have fond memories of filming that in Zanzibar, John.
You absolutely loved it. What could be better than my company when we're all overtired and haven't slept for weeks on end? That sounds delightful to me, at least.
Okay. So we're at that point of the spaces now where there's awkward silence. So I think that could be a cue to maybe wrap things up. Leave it there for a few more seconds. Yeah. Okay, I think we can wrap it up unless any speakers here have anything pressing they want to maybe talk about. Otherwise, can can kind of go through the outros. Nope. Yeah. Okay, well, thanks everyone for listening. Shout out to the speakers, World Mobile, John O'Connor. Really appreciate you guys taking the time. And also, obviously, the community members asking the questions and all the listeners out there. Really appreciate all of you tuning in. Hopefully, we can do another one of these AMAs in the future as well. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. We will save this. I think last time I did a space, there was an option where you could you could record it before you start, but now I think you leave and then you save it. So Bruno, that one's up to you to make sure that we save it and reshare it. But yeah, we'll get it out to everyone after this as well if you want to listen back. But yeah, thanks everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks for organizing it. Big up to Richard in the Netherlands for the Cardano special question. Have a great Monday.
Thank you very much, everyone. Such a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone.
Ciao.
Bye, everyone.
See you next time. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Ciao.